Hello and welcome to an episode of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Matt Dillahunty, according to the titles.
Yeah.
But last time I checked, I'm actually Russell Glasser, and with me today is Jen Peeples.
How you doing?
Hello, welcome back.
Thank you.
It seems like we did a show together not too long ago, so I don't know how the schedule has been going, but we're here now. Today is Sunday, September 10th, 2017, and we're a live call-in, internet-based atheist TV show broadcasting from Austin, Texas, dedicated to promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. You can catch us live every Sunday on YouTube or Ustream. The official Atheist Experience website is atheist-experience.com. You can provide feedback by commenting on the official show blog at freethoughtblogs.com/AXP. And you can also email us at tv@atheist-community.org or join the Atheist Experience official discussion group on Facebook. If you enjoy this show, please check out our related podcast, The Non-Prophets. Currently airing on the first and third Wednesdays of the month. You can find links at the Atheist Experience website. And you can also listen to that show on YouTube and Ustream. The next Non-Prophets will be recorded on Wednesday, September 20th, if I did my math right. As always, the cast and crew of the Atheist Experience will be going to dinner after the show at Star of India, 2900 West Anderson Lane. We're arriving at around 6:15 or so. So last week, just to recap, we announced that we would be matching $1,000 in donations, as well as giving the rest of the donations for that day and a little more that was earmarked for Hurricane Harvey to the Humanist Disaster Recovery Team. And that is something that the Foundation Beyond Belief does, and they were raising funds for Hurricane Harvey, and we sent in $3,674.25.
Sweet.
As a result of your helping out with the donations. So thank you guys very much, and I'm sure that they will do some good things with that. And of course, if you're in Florida, Hurricane Irma is hitting today. We haven't specifically been raising money for that, but stay safe. I hope you're not sitting in Florida right now watching this, because you should really leave.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of probably too late to leave.
Right.
All the airports are closed.
Yeah, start walking. Okay. No, seriously, I hope that you guys are okay.
Yeah.
To our fans in Florida, stay safe. Good luck.
Actually, I kind of hope some people are watching us, because that probably means they still have power.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Everything's fine. So, yeah.
Right. The Bat Cruise is coming up fast. In fact, it is 2 weeks from now, on September 23rd. And our guest speaker is going to be Mohammed Syed, the president of the ex-Muslims of North America. It's going to be great. He will be our guest on the show the following day. So if you can't make it, you can still see him. And if you can make it, you should. And you should hurry up and buy tickets now and come to Austin, because it's always a great time.
Yep.
Also, speaking of Hurricane Harvey, the Austin Pride Festival that we've been hyping for so long was postponed due to severe weather. Now, we in Austin didn't actually get hit as hard by the hurricane as they did in Houston. I mean, that was about the hardest that any American city has been hit by a hurricane ever, just in terms of dollars of damage, as far as I've heard. We just got some heavy rain for a while. We're okay, but the Austin Pride Festival is rescheduled to October 21st, and we're still going to be there unless something else happens to it.
Yeah, so the time for that, it's going to be noon to 10 p.m., so a nice long period of time. And of
also,
course,
the weather is going to be so much better in
yeah,
October.
the weather's usually cooler in October, so we should have a much better time in that respect. But yeah, just so you know, I mean, what hit us in Austin was a tropical storm. So it was still a tropical storm when it hit here, and it still caused a lot of rain. And there are areas in Austin and around here that do experience flash flooding, and you know, just it was just kind of a dangerous storm, lots of wind and everything. And so we canceled operations for that weekend for the ACA, just because it's more important for people to stay at home, take care of their homes and families than it is for people to come in and produce a TV show or something. So that was the deal. I was actually supposed to be on with Matt that day, and so my appearance got canceled. We were going to talk about aftermath of Pride and all this stuff, and it was going to be fun, but you know, things happen. So we'll talk about Pride at a later date. And I actually switched dates with Phil to be here because he needed to be at Lackland today.
Oh, that's what happened. I got you.
So that's why I'm here instead of Phil.
Well, good to have you.
Well, thank you.
What's on your mind?
So actually, there's been a lot of talk recently about something called the Nashville Statement. This was released by the Council for Biblical Manhood and Womanhood.
You can tell this is going to be very worthwhile.
So it is, let's see, I think there are 14 articles that they've released, and part of their deal was they needed to clarify their position on certain things.
Look, just in case you guys think that we're not completely awful people, let us dispel that notion.
Exactly. And so
that was important.
I don't know why they thought this needed clarity, because none of us were unclear about their particular views on these things. So, for example, here, Article 1 says, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, that marriage is between one man and one woman. You know.
Oh, that's new.
Yeah.
This is a bold policy statement. For who is the group again? Sorry.
It's the Council for Biblical Manhood and Womanhood.
Are they a denomination? I mean,
no,
are they associated?
They're sort of an aggregation of a bunch of evangelical denominations.
Okay, so they're an umbrella group for, like, I assume Baptists and also some other people.
Yes. And they were actually formed in 1987. So just to give you a little background on this group, they were formed in 1987 to combat the scourge of secular feminism.
And they've done a great job.
Yes.
Secular feminism completely ended in 1987. I remember it well.
Yeah. So anyway, Article 1, marriage is between one man and one woman. Article 2 says you are supposed to never have sex with anyone before marriage and only have sex with your spouse after marriage.
Again, great job. Nobody has sex outside of wedlock
that's
anymore.
Right.
Solved.
Article 3 says there's only male or female. Pick one. Again, I'm paraphrasing. You can like Google the Nashville Statement and find out what they actually say.
And Jen has good reason to paraphrase. This is long-winded.
It is a long-winded thing. Article 4 says that those gender roles that kind of, limit all of us, those are biblically mandated, divinely ordained.
They limit all of us, huh?
Yeah. Well, that's my language.
Okay.
The gender roles that limit all of us,
To what? Sorry.
Gender roles that say that you're not allowed to cry.
Oh.
And I'm not allowed to
that makes me sad.
Wear pants or something. I don't know. Anyway, those things are divinely ordained, and you step outside of those, and you're just like cursed by God or so. I don't know what it is. And if you want to know what gender someone is, you just look in their pants, because the biological structures are what define.
That's not normally
gender.
Polite.
I guess maybe you're supposed to look in your own pants to figure out what gender you are. That's not how it works. It says the actual wording on that is that the differences between male and female reproductive structures are integral to God's design for self-conception as male or female. So I guess that means you're supposed to look in your own pants and determine if you're male or female. Oh, and the Article 6 says something about eunuchs who were born that way from their mother's womb. I think that's a reference to like intersex people or people who are not otherwise on the binary thing. But you're still supposed to pick one. You got to pick one, male or female. You can't be non-binary according to this. Let's see. Self-conception as male or female should be defined by God's holy purposes in creation and redemption as revealed in Scripture. So I guess if you want to know, if you're struggling with whether you're male or female and how to pick one, you're supposed to read the Bible. And somehow that'll be revealed to you. Or look in your pants. So, I guess read the Bible, looking in your pants, they'd probably get you the same thing. Let's see. Oh, here's one. We affirm that people who experience sexual attraction for the same sex may live a rich and fruitful life pleasing to God through faith in Jesus Christ. In other words,
that's great.
This is, I think, leading into the don't ask, don't tell portion of this, which, is, hey, if you're attracted to the same sex, just suppress that stuff. You're not supposed to act on it, do anything, and you can pretend that praying and, for God to, take the gay away, that will make you happy or something.
Oh, I see this now that each one of them is phrased as, we affirm this thing, but we deny that thing.
Yes.
And so each one of them is, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, it's basically, I was going to say the first one seems to be a mitigating factor where we're not as awful as you might think, but actually we are in the second part. But then, I'm looking at it now, and the first half is usually awful too. So.
Yeah, and it goes on to basically say the last 4 articles are essentially saying, oh, we're only telling you this because we love you so much. And if you just pray enough, Jesus will transform you so that you won't be gay or transgender or non-binary or even feminist or something. I don't know. You can pretend that you're not transgender if you pray hard enough, and that we're all sinners. And that I think is kind of a horrible message for people that somehow there's something.
It's a standard message, but a horrible one.
But this is it sort of underscores the damage this does. That convincing people that their natural sexual orientation or gender expression is a sin in some way, and that it's bad. And so anyway, none of this is new. It just came out, but again, I don't think anybody was unclear about what their views are on this.
I guess the question this leaves me with is, who in particular are they expecting to care about all these opinions? Who is the target audience for this thing?
Well, if we look at the list of the people who signed this, there's several people associated with the Family Research Council. Let's see, Moody Bible College, Southern Baptist Convention, Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, Association of Certified Biblical Counselors, and that's a group that has the potential to do serious harm.
Right.
Liberty University.
Does this, basically what they appear to have done is listed a set of 14 opinions on something, and then it's like, well, that's great, I'm glad that you let me know your opinion. Does it have any authority or weight with anybody for them to have written down this opinion?
Well, I think
this is the age of the internet. If they opened this up as an article on Cracked, then it would just fill up with commenters saying, "Well, that's bullshit," and just people. And that is how religious proclamations often seem to have been met historically, anyway. So, So what, guys?
Well, basically, they've also kind of thrown down the gauntlet to other Christians who don't agree with them.
Yeah.
And they're basically saying that they do not agree to disagree on any of these articles.
Okay.
So they're going to, it's like, okay, if that's the hill you want to die on, go ahead.
Yes.
Because, there's been a recent Pew Research poll that shows that they're still losing ground.
Yeah.
And in particular, there are some states where they've lost significant ground. So, if you go to someplace like Mississippi or whatever, there's still going to be like 60-70% of people who identify as, I think 60% of people in Mississippi identify as Baptists.
Yeah.
Never mind, just Christian overall. But in other states, it's kind of, I think they did say there were a number of states where the Christians have actually flipped into the minority in those states.
Oh no!
So they are still losing ground, and I think part of it is, hey, keep publishing stuff like this.
Sure.
Just keep on publishing stuff like this, because if you have gay people, transgender people, intersex people in your congregation, you are going to force them to re-examine their religious beliefs and their affiliation with you. So by all means, please clarify your views on this at every opportunity. We love it.
I feel like modern Christian denominations seem to be characterized a lot by, like, half of them keep trying to come up with things to make their incredibly uncool religion seem cool and relevant to to a new people of generation growing up.
Yeah.
And then the other half seem to be just constantly backlashing against that, saying, saying, oh, don't try to change God's word. Just remind people over and over again of this incredibly ridiculous thing that we believe. And I mean, the people who try to make it cool just always strike me as funny and sad. Like, I remember a few years ago, there was an organization that published like a couple of Bibles. One of them that was packaged as sort of a hip GQ style men's magazine, and the other one was like repackaged as sort of a teen gossip magazine.
Yeah.
But it was just biblical stuff in different language, and it sounds even dumber when it's put in those terms.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, some group published a thing and a bunch of people signed it, and it's a big fat so what, probably.
Yeah, it's I mean, and if you go to their website, again, it's the Council on Biblical.
It's cbmw.org is what I'm seeing, and they have multiple statements here. This one in particular is the Nashville Statement.
Yeah, there's the Danvers Statement, which was published in 1987. So you can, I mean, they published two statements in how many years now? So they've been very active.
30
obviously.
years.
Yeah.
Yep.
But 30 years since their Danvers Statement. I guess maybe it was time.
Which is exactly the time jump that Marty made to the future.
Yeah.
So I can imagine him getting there and them being like, hey, our group just published this thing. And he was like, I thought you already did that before I left.
Yeah. So anyway, nothing new here. But again, we're happy that they've clarified that they're still unrepentant bigots.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And now you may continue ignoring them.
Yes.
All right, let's get to calls. And we got Courtney in Ontario. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Hi,
Good.
Courtney. I'm good.
Good. I wasn't expecting you to get to me first because I'm an atheist. But
well,
I
you called first, and sometimes we like a warm-up call.
It's a warm-up call. I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, for what you do, because I thought I had a pretty good grasp on the arguments for theism, and I have learned all kinds of wacky theories since I started watching your program. So
you're welcome.
Thank you for that.
All right.
So I was indoctrinated when I was born, obviously. And it took me a really long time to get to the point of being a comfortable atheist, where I don't have that nagging feeling of, well, what if I'm wrong anymore, and I'm not worried about hell and all those sorts of things. And I made a point in raising my daughter to not include any of these teachings, because I don't think... It's not that I didn't want to tell her that people believe in God. It was that I didn't think that she was old enough yet to understand the breadth of religion and the implications. And
how old is she now?
She's 7 now.
Okay.
So we haven't even got to the point of discussing the reality of Santa Claus yet. So But my hand has sort of been forced because we were driving the other day, and she just made a comment in passing. We passed the cemetery, and she said, "Oh, look, Mom, there's Jesus' grave." Oh. And I went, "What?" First of all, how do you, where did you get Jesus from? And second of all, how do you think that that's his grave? So I guess it was a picture on the tombstone of Jesus. And I was like, well, I don't even know where to start with this, because first of all, if there was a Jesus, that is not what he looked like. And then you have to go back to, where did people even get the idea of who this is? So we had a short conversation, basically. Well, where did you get that idea from, and who taught you about this? And she sort of had a vague understanding of God, and so we started from the beginning. And I told her, basically, a long time ago, people didn't have answers for things. They looked at this fireball in the sky, and they knew that it was good for them because it helped plants grow, and it kept them warm, and it gave them light. But then it went away at the end of the day, and they didn't know what to do. So they thought, if I scratch my nose and I shake my leg and it comes back, then that must be appeasing somebody, so I'm going to keep doing that. And so I got her to understand the concept of how sort of God was, the inception of God, I guess, and for humanity, as far as I could, narrow it down so that she would understand it. And I got her to refute it, basically. But then we got to the subject of heaven and hell, and I very casually said, so because there's no God, then obviously that there's also no heaven, no hell. And her eyes welled up with tears, and I'm going to get upset talking about this. And she said, I don't want to talk about this anymore, Mom. And I said, why are you upset? And she said, well, I thought if there's no heaven, then I can't see Gran or Tay, which is our family dog. I can't see them anymore. And I was so mad at first. Somebody had put this idea in her head that there is an afterlife to look forward to, because I was so adamant about teaching her that this is our life, and you make this time count with the people that you love, and then when you lose them, you have their memory to look back on. So really what I wanted to ask you guys is, what is your advice going forward? Basically, I kind of scrambled through it because I was so devastated that she was sad. And I said, well, maybe when you die, you can pick whatever happens to your soul or whatever, and you can go be with Gran and Tay. And I kind of, because I didn't know what to do. And I guess I'm just looking for advice from you. How would you approach this? Because obviously I never would have taught her that. We've dealt with loss together, and I never gave her an explanation of heaven. We just said these people are gone now, and we can miss them, and we can think about them. I mean, she wrote a book about the dog that she looks at all the time. And, but I'm so mad that somebody put this idea in her head, and I don't know how to fix it now.
Well, fortunately, you called the show on the right day, because you ended up with the two hosts who are both parents. So
yes, that's very fortunate.
Yeah.
Well, if I may, unless you want to launch in first.
Go ahead.
So I apologize beforehand, but before I get to your question, I would just like to offer this as a teachable moment to other parents out there. Yeah. Because religion is pervasive in all our cultures, and I don't know if it was a reasonable expectation that you could just not say anything about religion for your kid's whole life and let them get all the way to 7 and not hear anybody's opinion. So I mean, it's not just yours.
Can I address that quickly, Russell? Mm-hmm. My aha moment, I guess, was, I can't believe everybody keeps saying that. That's like an Oprah thing. But I was in high school. I was in a Catholic high school, and one of our compulsory courses was a world religions class. Yeah. And that's what opened my eyes. I saw all of these different religions that had basically the same foundations. And then I thought, well, why do I think that what I believe is right when all these people think that what they... So my intention had always been that when she is able to sort of grasp this idea of this broad concept, that I would sit her down and we would talk about all of the religions from a skeptical standpoint. But I don't think she's old enough to grasp, even skepticism right now.
Well,
she still needs me to basically tell her what's right and wrong.
Oh,
so
I certainly disagree with that part.
Yeah.
I think kids can understand skepticism from a very young age. I think you just need to, I mean, the world is full of stuff that people are presenting as factual. I mean, even all the way down to if your kid watches cartoons or Sesame Street, then they're probably aware, or should be, of the distinction between the giant Muppets that walk around and people they see in real life. And I think
but I mean, she still watches Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and we go to Disneyland, and she thinks that those are real still. She's still very young, right? So it's different for different children, I suppose, in the way that you raise them. I like that she still has, a belief in some magic things, because I think that's part of childhood, and maybe it's because mine was a little bit different, that I wanted to sort of protect that in her. But I just hadn't got to that point yet, and I certainly didn't think that anybody would be giving her these ideas.
I'd just like to point out, and this is the source of the teachable moment, you weren't ready to give her this information about God, but rest assured that other Christian kids are very ready to give your kid their opinion about God, and that's going to be true just about no matter where you live. And I'm not criticizing your parental approach. Yeah. I'm just pointing out that that's going to happen to people, and they should be aware of it going in if they want to take that into consideration when they consider how other parents might teach their kids about the topic. Go ahead.
So, I mean, one of the things that I was concerned about raising my son in a household of atheists was that people were going to tell him about Christianity, and I would not be able to control that conversation. And so my goal from the time he was fairly young was to inoculate him against those concepts. So when you inoculate them, you don't withhold information about religions. You provide more information than the average Christian kid is going to get. And so what we did was we started with Greek mythology. So Greek and Roman mythology. Read them the stories. And, you can select the stories carefully, because some of those stories have adult themes. Okay? But again, the Greek and Roman gods were portrayed more as like flawed humans with godlike powers than the Abrahamic religions portray their God. And so I think it ends up being much more relatable. But you can introduce the concept of a demigod, and that's very useful when it comes to talking about Jesus. Because when I had the conversation about Jesus with my son, when I explained to him that according to the legend, Jesus' father was Yahweh, and his mother was Mary, and he immediately said, "Oh, he's a demigod." Yep, that's it. So it's much harder to convince a kid that Christianity has some insight into the truth once you've basically inoculated them against some of the central concepts. And as far as my son is concerned, Jesus is not, God here on earth. He wasn't actually, this whole idea of a triune God is just absurd to him.
He's just a demigod from another story, like the ones that he's heard before. Well, I mean, we'll do that with the next kid, but I already screwed this one up. So no. Your child's critical thinking skills are intact, and all you have to do is introduce her to Greek and Roman mythology.
Well, that's not all.
Not it.
But in terms of the afterlife conundrum, though, because, I mean, it's not the same thing as telling her there's no such thing as Santa Claus, because at the end of the day, that holiday still remains. You still get presents. But when you say there's no heaven, then all of that goes away, and there's nothing anymore. So I guess you just have to do it.
But there are concepts in other religions about that. And so there's a concept of like an afterlife in Greek and Roman mythology. There's also, the Norse mythology. You can talk about Valhalla, all kinds of stuff.
Right, but none of it leads to the truth. Well, I mean, not the truth as I understand it.
But the thing is, what you want her to do is start thinking about these things, and the fact that humans have always come up with these concepts, and you know what? She's pretty young. She'll get there, and she's allowed to have a little time to grieve because something she thought was true maybe isn't.
Right.
And that's okay. I mean, she feels however she feels, and you're there to support her, and she'll be fine.
Now, you say that you think you've screwed her up because now she's feeling existential about death and upset about it. I got news for you. Every kid has to deal with that at some point in their life, and it doesn't matter what they thought about it. I have seen an atheist parent who's a friend of mine on Facebook recently raise her kid atheist all the way through, never had any illusions about heaven and hell. And then one day at like age 9 or 10, the kid just says, I don't want to die, and like has to deal with this problem that is a fundamental part of human existence, like we all do. I went through that. I mean, I had like concerns about death and dying when I got to a certain point in my childhood, and then I had a resurgence of it around the time I hit 30, where I would get depressed for a while and also think a lot about the fact that my parents, who aren't dead yet still, but will eventually be gone, and I will miss them. But that's something everybody has to face up to, and I think part of our
humanity.
Yeah, and it's sad, but also I guess the way that I would or have been and continue to want to be comforted when it comes to death is that you hold your loved ones in your memory and you write things about them, about what you remember about them, and you tell people about them, and you try to exemplify the things that they valued in their lives. And you also try to live your life in a way that touches people around you so that they will want to carry a part of you with them too. It's not as good as living forever. I can't lie about that. Living forever sounds awesome.
Who you're living forever with.
It depends.
And who you have to worship to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess the mitigating factor on that is you can continue worshiping those people and it actually doesn't make you live forever. That's just nonsense.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time and for your advice.
Right.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah. Thanks for calling. Anything else to add?
No, I think that, when your kid is, 7 years old, there's still a lot of room to mitigate whatever has happened before.
Sure, 7-year-olds are resilient.
Yeah, they're pretty resilient, so it'll be okay.
Yeah. And I also wanted to say that I remember when you and I talked to Dale McGowan about atheist parenting, and I think one thing we all agreed on was that oh man, now it just slipped out of my mind.
Well, basically, one of the things I remember from that conversation is that you teach your children how to make moral judgments, not based on a set of rules, but on, what does this harm someone else? What does this do to the people around me? And if you teach them to make decisions for the right reasons, then at the end, it doesn't matter if they're theists or atheists, because they'll make those decisions for the right reasons.
Yeah. But I do remember what I was going to say. It's that a lot of atheist parents have been indoctrinated. In fact, it doesn't surprise me that our last caller focused on her indoctrination. But then they react strongly in the opposite direction and say, well, I'm just not going to push my opinions on my child at all. And that's not in my opinion, really doing them a favor,
Right.
because you are going to be the strongest influence in their life.
Yeah.
And if you have opinions that run counter to culture, to the popular opinion that they'll run into at school or in the rest of their lives, you owe it to them to let them know how you feel about important issues. That doesn't mean that you're going to do the Christian thing of, well, you'll worship my God or I'll disown you.
Yeah.
But there's a big gap between not forcing your opinions to be their opinions and not telling them what you think about stuff at
Right.
all.
Yeah, I think leaving a vacuum in that place is not really a viable option, because someone will fill that space, whether it's a classmate or a teacher, or somebody will come in there and fill that space. And, you know, I think one of the things that I had concerns about when my son was very young was that I didn't want to teach him a lot of the Christian mythology, because a lot of it, once you're kind of on the other side of it and you look at it as an atheist, you see it as being kind of gruesome. It's a pretty horrible message all the way through. And so I didn't want to do that to my son. So I withheld a lot of that mythology, but I didn't withhold stories about religious thought from him. And I think that there's a way to do this. And I mean, it can be as simple as, you know, get a copy of Aesop's Fables and read it to your kid.
Those are good stories.
And yeah, and explain, you know, have conversations with your kid about what those things mean, and how we figure out, you know, how we're supposed to behave.
Yeah. All right. Next on the line, we have Reverend Phillip from Virginia. Hello, Phillip.
Yes, am I on the air?
You are. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm also doing wonderful.
Excellent, excellent. First of all, I was going to talk about the evidence of God, but
Okay.
Before I get into that, you guys brought up what was the group that y'all were talking about at the start of the show that had those bullet points?
Yeah.
Oh, the Tennessee Statement, right?
Yeah. Or the
Right,
Nashville Statement.
The
yeah.
Nashville Statement.
Yes, exactly, the Nashville Statement. This is actually the first time I've heard of such a statement. I think they promote some good things.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
That we have assigned gender roles. What is so wrong with that?
Oh, where to start?
This is not funny.
I'm just going to stand back now.
Actually, it's kind of amazing, because gender roles, it's kind of a social construct. They're not consistent across different cultures. So there are things that are prescribed gender roles in, for example, Saudi Arabia, that we find absurd here. That, you know, no one would agree to that.
Do you have any examples, please?
Yes, actually I do. This idea that if you're a woman, you're not supposed to drive. If you're a woman, you're not allowed to show your face in public. You can't vote or hold a job or any number of things.
Okay. I see what you're saying now. Okay. Well, here's the thing, though. We in America, you see, we're trying to lead the world into good things, and that was divinely inspired. Why is that so bad?
I think it's great, which is why I think it's awesome that the American values of freedom to behave the way you want and freedom to express yourself the way that they want are things that we should model to the rest of the world, which is why I'm glad most people completely ignore this council in their statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have all these. We have the liberal preponderance that supports. When Trump first brought out the no transgender in the military, there was a backlash, and frankly, I don't understand it.
Why?
I'm sorry you don't understand it. There are a lot of transgender people who are productive members of the military. And I think a big part of the reason was not only that the military didn't ask Trump to decide their business for them, but he generally had no idea what he was talking about and wasn't aware of the situation that was currently in the military. He just decided something and tweeted it.
Yeah.
Which to this day, I'm not sure he's actually done anything about, because I think he thinks that tweeting something is the same as passing a law about it.
But sir, there's only two genders, male and female.
No, that's not technically true.
Based on what?
Based on science? Are you aware that there are people who are born with an intersex condition in which they don't fit neatly into male or female categories?
What is intersex?
Oh, you have a lot of homework to do.
I mean, I would start on Wikipedia, even though that's not like an authority on stuff. But I mean, if you just Google that.
Are you talking about like hermaphroditic type stuff?
You know, that's an archaic term, and it's actually kind of offensive. But
I'm not trying to offend anyone, and I apologize if I gave off offense. But barring that word being not appropriate anymore, is that the sort of thing you're talking about?
Yes, there are people who don't fit neatly into male or female categories. And male and female, it's kind of an arbitrary distinction. It's more of a continuum.
Well, I guess I have to go back and do my homework then.
Yes, you do.
Have a good day.
Okay, well, that's constructive. You want to get on to God? I mean, you want to get back to the topic you originally called about?
Oh, I guess he dropped off.
Oh, okay, that's it.
All right, well, that was interesting.
Yeah.
There's only male and female. What's intersex?
Right. So this is not a topic that I ever feel super qualified to talk about. Although we've had conversations with what was it? We had an episode where we took a long call from Stephanie Guttormson.
Yeah.
I hope I pronounced that right. Who gave a long discussion about this. This is also an issue where we receive a lot of angry atheist mail from people. In fact, I think that Tracy received something like today, complaining about something she said about transgender issues on the last episode. And we don't have time to answer every piece of email we have. Like the opinions that we express on the show are often the extent of the amount of time that we've got to argue with people all week. Yeah, but I mean, I did want to add that, like, science fiction being a science fiction geek gives me a lot of interesting thoughts about people's insistence that people have to, like, identify as a particular thing that's dependent on their biology. My wife asked once, will you believe in the theoretical possibility that you could have your brain transferred to another person or, to another body? If your brain, you being a straight man, if your brain got transplanted into the body of a woman, would you then feel that you were a woman, or would you still believe on some essential level that you were male? And I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I mean, going off on more science fiction stuff, like, do robots have to have a gender? The fact that Data from Star Trek was built to look like a dude. I mean, I don't know if he's anatomically correct. I think he addressed that on one episode. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But we won't think about that because. Anyway, sorry to get off on tangents. Let's go to. Well, it's too bad we didn't get to hear his proof of God, though. So I'm going to go to the other theist caller on the line, and that's Jeff in Georgia. What's up?
All right. Hey, what's going on, Russell?
Hiya. First-time caller?
How you doing? No, I've called one time before. Spoke to Matt.
Okay. Well, welcome back.
How you doing, Jen? Thank you very much. How you doing, Jen Peeples?
I'm good. So what's on your mind?
Good. My topic was faith. I could comment on a lot of things that's been said previously, but basically, I need to refresh myself. If I remember correctly, Russell, you are Jewish, and Jen, you perhaps are a former Christian. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm culturally a secular Jew. I had a bar mitzvah, but I didn't have to believe any of the stuff.
Okay. Secular Jew and
they're
Christian.
pretty common.
So I'm going to address Jen first of all.
All right.
Okay.
She's my sister in the Lord because I'm a Christian.
I'm not your sister in the Lord.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I was gonna ask you first, but I guess that's how I view you. In other words, I view you as a sister, someone that has no longer has faith. Correct?
I do not believe a God exists.
Right. Okay, you realize that you put down your shield in this battle that we're in, this spiritual warfare that we're in, right?
I'm not actually involved in any spiritual warfare.
Okay. Well, when you put down what is called the shield of faith in Scripture, I'm sure you remember that, right? You remember it in the Bible where it's called the shield of faith.
Yes, I'm familiar with the concept.
Although, let me clear something up. We don't believe anything that's in the Bible. So, like saying, I mean, quoting that book is not any more relevant than just quoting Star Wars or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware that's what atheists have done. They have they have decided that faith is not useful at all, and yet the Bible says that it's a. Go ahead.
So
I'll let you go.
We didn't decide that, okay? It's not like a conscious decision. What I decided to do was investigate whether my beliefs were justified. And I did that by studying the Bible, by asking questions, and trying to find what was the truth. And what I discovered at the end of that, and it wasn't like a one moment where I had this epiphany that, oh, hey, God doesn't exist. It was a long period of time. And at the end of that, I realized that whatever I believed before was not justified using science and reason. And I had to reject those beliefs because otherwise I would be intellectually dishonest. And so it wasn't a conscious choice. It was a matter of I was no longer convinced. So the problem here is not that I didn't want to believe or that I decided not to believe, it's that I don't believe.
Now, let me ask you a current question. Do you currently use faith in your current affirmations of truth?
No. I'm quite sure that whatever you're defining as faith is not something that I would use.
Maybe we should ask you to define faith before we go on.
Faith is what you trust, what you think, what you have confidence in.
Oh, well, in that case, yeah. So what?
I have confidence in a lot of things.
That's a very broad definition of faith. Are you sure you want to box it in that way, or to open it up that way?
Absolutely, because that's the biblical. That is a biblical definition.
All right. So your statement that we don't have faith in anything under that definition is just an incorrect statement. Yeah. So now what?
Okay. Why don't you believe in God?
Because we don't have confidence in it.
Yes. So the evidence doesn't support it.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
The evidence doesn't support it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The evidence is everything that you can observe, that science can
it isn't.
Can unlock.
That's absurd.
I'm observing a lot of things right now. Don't see any indication that there's an omniscient, all-powerful being in outside of space and time. So
Why does everything
you'll
work?
have to be more specific.
Okay, let's talk about the water cycle then. You know the water cycle that we were taught in high school?
Yeah.
How the water moves from one state to the other, and it nourishes the things around it, and how those things work together, and see how science has shown how all of that stuff works together, and they teach it to us so that we can see that it all works together in a specific way.
Yeah.
My question to you is,
people have observed that happening, and it's important to teach kids so that they understand reality correctly. And
in reality shows us that there is this thing called the water cycle that works together and nourishes the plants and goes through all of its machinations and does what it does. And there is a creator of that water cycle.
No. Wait, you lost me. You were fine until you said, you were fine until you said, and it shows that there is a creator. Like, now you're just repeating the thing that we already weren't with you on. So, again, you got to be more specific about
So if there were a creator of this water cycle, and this creator controlled the water cycle, then several years ago, in 2011, people were praying for rain. And the whole state of Texas was on fire, okay? And no rain came. I mean, you could see the Bastrop.
I'll tell you what, Florida got our rain now.
Yeah. So
Florida.
Bastrop was on fire, and you could see that fire from Austin. And people were praying for rain, and no rain came. And you know how that fire got put out? Humans put that fire out.
Oh, okay.
So if there was a creator who controlled the water cycle, surely he could have directed a little bit of that water cycle over to Bastrop, and
assuming he actually cared.
Yeah, assuming he cared.
Right. I mean, you get back to the Greek mythology; they're just like, ha ha, keep
screw you.
You're not sacrificing a goat, so whatever.
Well, God, his answers to prayer is not always yes.
Yeah, that's the get out of jail free card that every Christian tries to play. It doesn't work here.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, this observation that God doesn't always answer yes to prayer is exactly the same observation you could make no matter what you pray to. I mean, you could pray to a potato, and sometimes your prayers would come true, and sometimes they wouldn't come true. That's exactly the same thing.
It's the magic 8 ball. You shake the magic 8 ball up, and it's like, am I going to get what I want today? And it says, ask again later. It's like, okay. Well,
if you have no faith in God, you will never ask. Period. Right?
I mean, why would we if there's no evidence? That brings us right back to what we were talking about in the first place.
Again, Jen, you laughed, but I'm asking you this question directly. If you have no faith in God, you will not ask because you don't believe in Him, right?
Right.
Right or wrong?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And again, why would I ask? I mean, this whole idea of faith.
Why would? If you wouldn't ask if you have no faith. If you have faith, you will ask.
Well, I did.
Yes, and sometimes it will be no.
Yeah, and I did have faith at one point. And then I investigated the basis of that faith and found it to be lacking. As in lacking any evidence to support it.
What I originally approached you with was the fact that you laid down your shield of faith and you made yourself
It's not a shield.
Against what?
It's not a shield.
Shield against what?
Against the darts of the enemy of her mind.
Which is what?
Your mind? What is your mind?
No,
No,
what's these
the
darts
dark
of
enemy.
the darts of the enemy of my mind?
Yeah,
what is that?
because it sounds like you're asking her to pick up an imaginary shield to protect against an imaginary enemy.
Or reality.
No, it's not imaginary. It's imaginary to you, Russell, because you have no faith.
Well, according
It's
to what you
imaginary
said
to you.
earlier, I do have faith, so that's not true.
We've already established that according to your definition, we do have faith.
Just not in
about
your
some
thing.
things.
You have faith that you have faith in science and men's opinions and things of that nature.
In the
but you don't
sense
have
of
faith
having
in the God
confidence
of
in
the
those
Bible.
things, yes.
Exactly. I understood you very, very clearly.
Uh-huh.
You have faith, but you don't have faith in the God of the Bible, the
That's
true
correct.
creator of all things.
He's not the creator. There's no evidence to support that.
I don't have faith in the story of the guy creating the universe.
I understand that. I do.
Okay, so what difference does that make to you?
What difference does it make to me? What do you mean?
Oh, you must have called for a reason.
Yeah, what was the point?
Yeah, I was calling about faith, and this is what we're discussing right now.
Right.
I have faith in the Creator. I believe the Bible's record. I believe that there is a Creator, and when I look out in creation, when we look at things like the water cycle, common sense tells me
let me just
this
say,
doesn't just come together.
yeah,
This doesn't come
let me
together
let me just
haphazardly.
mention that when we asked what your definition of faith was, and I kind of put this off for a while because you had this very broad definition of, faith is what you think is true. But my understanding of religious faith.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Sorry,
Are you
say it
repeating
again.
My definition of faith is things that we have confidence in.
Okay, but I've always thought that the religious usage of the word faith entails a little more than that. That faith is the evidence of things not seen, right? It is not just believing in something or having confidence in it. It is the alleged virtue of believing in something without evidence or in spite of contrary evidence. Am I wrong that's what a lot of religious people think?
Well, religious people often quote what Hebrews says, and it says that faith is the evidence of things. So it's basically saying faith itself is evidence. In other words, So according to the way you defined it earlier, what that means is that if you have confidence in something, then that proves it's true, which I'm sure the Heaven's Gate cultists who killed themselves because they believed they were going to get to hitch a ride on a comet would be happy to hear that, but I don't think that is actually how evidence works. No. I said faith is confidence in something.
I thought you said faith is evidence. Just now.
That's what the Bible says. The Bible says in Hebrews that faith is the evidence of things not seen, which if you read that very clearly, basically it's saying that me, the Christian, I'm saying I have faith in God. I'm the evidence of the thing that you don't see.
You're not evidence that God exists.
What that scripture is basically saying is that you can wish things into existence, and that's absurd.
No, that's your understanding is severely lacking.
No, I think I think your understanding of this is severely lacking. You seem to think
In what respect?
Just asserting something doesn't make it true. Even if you really believe it, doesn't make it true.
I agree.
So,
the
so what's your evidence?
What is my evidence?
Yeah.
My evidence is all things that I can perceive, everything that science can discover and perceive is the evidence for God.
Then how come science hasn't concluded that there is definitive demonstration of a God? It sounds like you're going a little beyond this supposed scientific evidence and jumping to your own conclusions.
I don't care when the scientist looks at this, when the scientist looks at the water cycle, if he comes back and tells me God couldn't, I don't believe that God did that, whatever did that.
So you don't actually care about science.
Yeah.
You just use it when it's convenient because you think it demonstrates a point, but you're not interested in what it actually says.
No, I want to know. I want to hear what they have to say about it. But what I'm telling you is, when I was taught the water cycle, and when I look at the water cycle, I say to myself, that thing is working together, and and what my response is, God, that's awesome. You made something totally awesome, and that's why I worship Him also.
Right. Well,
because
it's nice of you to give credit to this thing that you made up, and I'm sure that it appreciates that. But
I don't
we
think
don't
it appreciates
have
it.
right.
I know,
I'm a riot.
Russell. That's the point.
Yeah.
He's real. He's real. He's
How do
with
you
me
know?
right
Yeah,
now.
please demonstrate that with
talked
reason
to
and
him.
evidence.
I talked to him. See,
You
I
talked
talked
to
to
him.
him.
What did he say? When did you talk to him? Today?
He tells me that he loves me.
Can he say that on the PA right now? Can he send that in through the phones?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
He can do way more than that.
All right.
Way more than that.
Well, get going, God. You got like 15 seconds.
Well, my Father loves me, and I'm letting you know that.
Okay.
No.
That you don't sound very much like God to me, but oh well. Okay.
You know,
All right.
If this were one of those stories passed around the internet, a Marine would come and punch me out right now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I didn't hear that last part.
Oh, sorry. There are.
It's a reference to some fake stories on the internet.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Well, Russell.
All right.
If this is the end of my call, I want to say this. Let me get this out, please. And
Okay,
Jen,
go.
especially you. I love you, Jen.
No, you don't. You don't even know me.
You-
Don't say that shit to me. Seriously.
Well, okay, Jen, I've heard you on the show several times. So in that sense, I know you is in respect to the amount of time that I've listened to you on the show, and I'm expressing love to you. Now you can receive it, you can reject it or receive it. That's regardless. I wanted to say the same thing to you, Russell. As a human being, I'll put it on that level if you can receive it. I love you as well.
I love you
And
too,
peace
man.
to you guys. All right, peace to you guys. Have a good rest of the day.
All right,
See
you
ya.
too.
All right. Well, that was underwhelming.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm sorry. Of course, when I say that God has 15 seconds to speak up on the phone, there's always the risk that there's like going to be some static, or we're going to lose power in the building or something, and then people would be like, oh, God did send you a sign. You just weren't open to receiving it at the moment.
Yes.
But yeah, I feel pretty confident that God dropped the ball that time. There is no God. That was a joke.
Yeah.
Coby in Oklahoma.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey. Wow, I finally got on. Cool. Well, first of all, I just want to say for your first caller, atheist caller, I had similar question. I had similar questions. That's not why I was calling, but I just want to say thank you for good job answering our questions. It also kind of cleared things up for me as a father, parental advice. So,
How old are your kids?
4 and 6.
Okay. Well, yep.
Yeah.
Get on that. Make sure that they know what you think. Doesn't mean you're indoctrinating them.
Right. Good advice.
All right.
But the reason I was calling is something I've been wanting to talk to somebody about. I'm a relatively new atheist. I say new, kind of gradually became so within the past 2 years or so. Just recently came out to everybody via social media. It kind of happened inadvertently. Just posting some rather vague and like scientific and philosophical type thing. My mother finally asked me, of course, she got, I guess, curious, and she was, of course, pretty upset about it, still is to this day. And she, in fact, so much that my parents have asked me to block them from seeing anything like that, even though I make a point to not be like an anti-theist, which I get the impression that a lot of them, my family included, kind of perceive that way of me. And when I've clearly stated many times that I'm not saying that there's no God, I'm just simply saying I don't believe it to be true.
Okay.
And so, I guess what I'm getting to is my question is, now that I'm out, I have this urge where I have an urge. I want to speak about this stuff. I don't want to suppress it, even though it may upset a lot of people. But it affects our culture so much, and I think about it a lot. Like I'm constantly listening to your guys' show, like past shows and stuff on YouTube on my way to work. I don't watch it on the screen when I'm driving, of course, but but
we're available on a podcast, so it takes a little less bandwidth that way because it's just audio.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll check that out. So I have this urge to just want to speak out about it, but then at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to be like that annoying guy that that's just kind of like an obsession. I don't know. What do you like? Like I said, I'm not going out. For an example, one of my favorite things I've done that really pissed a lot of people off is all I'll do is simply, quote an outlandish Bible verse that most Christians want to ignore anyway. For example, like, Exodus 21, or even some of the New Testament stuff, like, slaves, obey your masters. I've done that sort of thing, just left it at that, just the single quote on, oh my gosh, you just see the fury it creates. I mean, that's kind of what got my parents kind of fired up, wanted, blocked me from seeing that stuff. Like, it's just simply right out of the Bible.
Yeah.
And I guess they see it as mockery, which I guess it is, kind of, because I definitely don't take anything seriously out of the Bible, but so just what do you think, like, where is there a line I shouldn't cross when I'm speaking out about my atheism? Like, obviously I'm not going to go out and say, you shouldn't believe that, that's silly, but I want people to, like I did, understand it for myself, because, I was indoctrinated, and just like most people are, and I finally just started questioning, and that's how I became an atheist.
So, I mean, as far as the line, I would say at work, obviously avoid discussion of religion at work. But, I mean, one of the things that you could do is just start a blog. Just kind of get your thoughts out there. And it's something that you could link it on your social media if you want to, and invite people to go and read your blog and comment. And then that's, it's their choice as to whether they go there and actually read what you've written and make a comment. So you're not forcing it on anybody. And as far as your parents saying, hey, I don't want to see this, they control what they see on their feed and what they engage with. And I guess if they want to be excluded from these posts that you put up, where you just post a line of scripture and apparently that's mocking God, do they do the same thing for you? Do they exclude you from posts saying, oh, praise Jesus that the hurricane missed Aunt Irma's house?
Actually, no. That's the funny part, because
I'm shocked.
When she first confronted me about my mother's way more religious than my father. But although he kind of takes her side on all the religious stuff, and but she's definitely more outspoken. And of course, I mentioned that to her, and basically she's just saying, well, I'm just speaking the truth. Satan has hardened your heart. and it's just it kind of breaks my heart. It's definitely changed our relationship a lot.
Coby, you've put down your shield. The daggers are.
Well, yeah, not just with her, and people at work, everybody knows my position now, and I just feel like this sense of, I'm not ashamed, but it's just like a sense of awkwardness with my religious family and friends. I just feel like maybe it's just me, but I think maybe they see me in a different light, I'm not to them not as good a person as they once thought I was when I was a religious person.
So,
and it just kind of little paranoia, I guess.
Well, so I'd like to make a general comment about social graces. Having a theological argument with somebody is a lot like kissing somebody. It can be a lot of fun if you're doing it right, but you probably shouldn't do it to anybody at work, and it's always better if you ask permission first.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a tendency for new atheists to be really enthusiastic and fired up, as it were, about sharing the good news that there is no God with everybody they know. You don't necessarily have to, because if you think strategically about the long-term goal of getting people to accept and appreciate the non-existence of God, being obnoxious and in your face about it to people sometimes is a really good strategy, but you have to gauge who your audience is, basically.
Right.
And if you're worried that your family won't like you because of having these conversations, it's totally up to you to decide, would I rather they like me or would I rather have the conversations? And the answer isn't always that clear cut. But there's a lot of people in the world that you can talk to about atheism, and a lot of people like the two theist callers that we've had today who would be delighted to get into those arguments with you. And navigating relationships with people when you disagree with somebody. People just choose not to discuss certain topics with each other all the time. It's not necessarily intellectually dishonest unless the other person is always forcing their views on you, and then they're definitely fair game.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. And actually, I wanted to mention one of my... I've listened to, other than just you guys, I've become very familiar with Anthony Magnabosco street epistemology, and I'm a very big fan of his approach. I know you guys, especially Matt, is a little more fire and brimstone when it comes to the argument, but no offense to you guys, but it seems like to me the street epistemology approach seems to work the best, because that's what I really like to. I really want to get people to question it themselves. I don't want to, there's lots of good arguments that atheists have, of course.
No offense taken, but also, you may well be right that if your goal is to convince the person that you're talking to that you have a point, then the Magnabosco street epistemology approach is a pretty good way of approaching it. But I think that what you have to recognize about this show is that we're not necessarily having these conversations with theists in the hope that they will change their mind, but we're also reaching out to a lot of atheists who watch the show and demonstrating or modeling what the lack of substance to the theist arguments.
Right.
And that's not always... Yeah.
Yeah, y'all show is definitely more entertaining, though. I love listening to the bad arguments from theists, of course. I love that. But as far as the effectiveness of wanting to get people, especially people who are already questioning, to...
Well, but the thing is, the question is, first of all, if you watch a lot of this show, you'll find that throughout the years we've used almost every technique possible out there
Right.
Yeah, including a lot of bad ones, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Socratic method is one of our favorites for exposing, logical, flaws or
what do you believe and why?
a failure of critical thinking. I mean, we're not opposed to any technique that works, and it depends on the caller.
Sure.
So the other thing is claiming that one method is more effective than the other, based on what? I mean, we have literally emails that come in every week from people who are former believers who said, I was a caller years ago and I hated you guys, but I started thinking and now I'm an atheist. So, I mean, based on what is one method superior to another? I would argue that
it's not. I guess it's just kind of my personal preference.
Sure, everybody wants to avoid.
And there's nothing wrong with having a preference.
Right, sure. Everybody, on some level, we all want to avoid those kinds of interpersonal conflicts. They're uncomfortable, but sometimes they're necessary.
Yeah, sometimes they're entertaining too.
The other thing is, what is the purpose of the interaction? Sometimes it's not to convince the caller. It's to convince.
And I'm guilty of just going, probably like those kind of like the Bible verses.
Right.
Just, I know I'm not. I was deep down I was putting it out there because I knew it would cause a stir.
Well, the other thing too is okay. So don't discount what else you're doing. Okay, what you're doing is a form of signaling. It's a social signal to other people who may be on the fence about their beliefs that you might be a friendly person to talk to. So don't discount don't discount the value of that kind of signaling.
Well, okay. I'm glad I was able to get on, but I'm let you guys try to get another caller, hopefully another theist or so.
Okay.
Sure. Thanks. Actually, I don't see any theists right now, but one last thing that I would want to say is that sometimes you have to let go of the desire to convince any one specific person.
Right.
So if there's a person in your life that you're thinking, that person believes in God, and I know they're smarter than that, so I really need to work on them. Like, that usually ends in frustration, in my experience.
Right.
I think it's way better to just be in a mindset where you're open to having those kind of conversations with people and see what happens. But
organically.
Right, but don't feel like you have the responsibility to fix other people, because it's not your problem.
Okay. But so it's pretty normal for me, like as I said, like as a relatively new within the past couple of years atheist, to just really I mean now that I'm seeing the light, I guess as you could say, that I'm
put down the shield.
Yeah.
I can't believe that there's just all this going on, and it's something I think about all the time now. My wife is still, she's not very a religious person. I wouldn't say she's an atheist. She still kind of has this kind of deist thing, and that's cool. We've been married 9 years now, and we have 2 lovely kids and love our relationship. And I'm not like with her. I don't really try to convince her, although I've asked her questions and stuff, but she's and it's fine. She just kind of wants to hang on to a kind of a deistic belief, like it's kind of a vague, I guess the main thing is the idea of an afterlife. I'm sure
Well, that's something you guys have to work out between each other.
But
basically.
First of all, welcome to reason.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, and you're kind of in the honeymoon phase of atheism right now. The ardor will probably cool a bit as you learn more about it, but it's fun. I think it's rewarding. Reality is a lot better basis for living your life than pretending this is a dress rehearsal for the afterlife.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
All
right. Well,
See you
thanks.
later.
Thank you.
Carolyn in Georgia. How's the weather where you are?
Windy,
Okay.
very windy.
You staying safe?
Yeah. My county has still yet to call off school for tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Good. Or like the last one, even when it's snowing.
How old are you?
17.
Okay. Well, welcome. What's on your mind?
So I was forced to go to church today, which is always the most fun thing in the world. And there's this thing called D groups, which is kind of like a short term to a disciple group. They try to make it an acronym for the kids, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so we were there, and one girl brought up The Rapture, and I personally have seen the movie. And
Which movie? There's several.
The Rapture, the one where all the Christians disappear.
Oh,
Yeah.
Not Left Behind. This is a specific movie called Rapture.
Yeah, it's a book series that they turned into a movie.
Oh, that is Left Behind, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Right. Well, I mean, the idea that this rapture thing will happen is only a few hundred years old, and people have made up a bunch of different stories about that. This just happens to be the most popular one right now. Anyway, it's a crappy movie, by the way.
Yeah.
It really sucks. It's very racist.
Wait. Is this the one with Kirk Cameron from like 10 years ago, or is it the new one with Nicolas Cage? Because there was a remake.
It's the new one with Nicolas Cage.
Oh, I heard that sucked.
Where they all blame the Muslim guy on the plane. And
Oh, wow.
They were gonna,
Oh. Yikes.
yeah, anyways, so the reason I wanted to talk about it was she thought it was so cool that, oh, yeah, all the Christian people, they just disappear and they go to heaven. And everyone was like, yeah, that sounds great. And I was just sitting there like,
Yeah,
I guess
actually-
I'm not going.
I think that sounds great, but, I don't think it's going to
Yeah,
happen.
get him out.
I mean, you got, like, and then she's like, yeah, and then everything just starts going crazy, and I'm just sitting there like, how is this a good thing? It's just crazy to think that someone could ever think that, oh, because all the Christian people disappear, it's going to be pretty much like the Purge all the time.
Yeah, Caroline, do your friends know that you don't believe, or are you hidden?
One of my friends did.
Yeah.
One of my friends, she was sitting next to me, and we just kept passing glances at each other, and I was just like, what's going on? Another thing is I live in a Catholic family, and it sometimes gets very hard. I was having a normal conversation with my mom, and it was just like, well, why don't you believe? And it's like, oh, I don't believe because of this. And she was like, if your grandma was still here, she'd cry.
Oh.
And I was just absolutely shocked. Like, my grandma, she died of cancer a few years ago on my sister's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the person that raised me and my sister. She was very, very close to us.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, because I was Christian, I blamed myself for praying that she got better, and she died.
What, you thought you didn't pray hard enough?
No, like the day before she died, I prayed she'd get better, and then the next day she died.
Okay.
So I thought it was my fault because I prayed.
So,
She died.
so you thought you maybe prayed wrong and got punished for it or anything or something like that?
I guess.
Oh.
Prayer's weird, so
Yeah.
you never know.
And so now you don't feel responsible for your grandmother's death, which you're not, obviously.
No, I just
but
I just
but
know it.
your mom tried to leverage that against you with a guilt trip. Sounds like.
Yeah, and I was just very shocked that it happened.
That is shocking.
Like, someone so close to me, and she knows that I still feel depressed about it sometimes, that she's gone. Not that it's my fault anymore, because I don't believe that. But, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Also,
I mean, I think Jen and I can both tell you as parents that parents don't always know what they're doing.
That's true.
And sometimes parents are just stupid and thoughtless and say a thing to get you to behave a certain way, and that sucks.
Point,
yeah.
On the point, when I was little, they always said that gay people are wrong, and like, it's bad to be gay. God doesn't like gay people. I'm lesbian, so.
Oh, well. So am I.
When I, good for you, girl. Thanks. When I started realizing I hate guys, they're weird and creepy.
No offense taken. Okay.
But girls are soft and sweet. And when I realized that I had this very distinct mindset about who I like, I was very scared to tell them, obviously, because, you know, like the horror stories, you'll get disowned, they'll never love you again, you'll be an outcast kind of thing. And when I told them at first, they were like, oh, you're just confused. You're just...
Yeah, it's just a phase. You'll get over it.
Yep. Not a phase.
Nope, not a phase.
Obviously. 12th grade to 7th grade, I don't think that's a phase. Same thing similarly happened with my uncle. When he was in high school, he came out as gay to his mom, and he's like 47 now, and she still thinks it's a phase. Pretty long phase.
Yeah.
Checking 30 years.
Well, I'm glad you don't buy into that bullshit about, you know, being gay being bad or anything, because gay is awesome.
I know.
You know, unless you're not gay, in which case, you know, you could probably take it or leave it, but, you know. Anyway, yeah, so I don't know where I was going with this other than, yeah, I'm glad you didn't buy into that part of the indoctrination.
Well, we're about out of time, but
Yeah.
if you guys still need to talk to each other afterwards, Carolyn, I think you'd be welcome to stay on the line for a few more minutes after the show's over,
or
if you want, Jen.
Or you can email us.
Yeah.
You can always send an email. We can continue the
I just
conversation.
really want to put this out there to like tell people that it's, you know, okay to think differently, and you shouldn't take what your family says or your friends say at face value, because they don't know how it's going to affect you, and they don't really understand how much it like could hurt you if you did take it at face value.
Yeah. Yep, you're right.
That's a great message for our audience.
You always have to consider that they're indoctrinated, and that's how they think because of that. And if you take that into the equation, you kind of realize, oh, that's why they said that, because they're trying to make me like them.
Yeah. And the thing is, their indoctrination isn't a good excuse for them being able to hurt other people with their beliefs.
I don't think so at all. But
And
you have to, like, realize that part of the reason why they're being that terrible.
Yeah, your example here with coming out is important, because having someone you know be gay or atheist or whatever, it makes it a lot harder to discriminate against that person. And so I'm a big advocate of if people can come out safely, then I think they should, and that's why I'm out, because I think that you know, if my being out and my whole family's out, we don't hide the structure of our family from anyone, and I think that's important because not everybody has that ability. And the more we break down these prejudices, the better it is for everyone. So thanks for the call. I think we're going to...
Thank you for calling. And that's our show. All right. Bye, Carolyn. And we'll see you at Star of India in about 15 or 30 minutes or so. And thank you all for watching. Thanks all you audience out there for showing up.
Yes, thanks everybody.
And we'll see you next week. This is Russell Glasser, host of The Atheist Experience. You know, The Atheist Experience is made possible by volunteers and the generous support of viewers like you. If the promotion of positive atheist culture and separation of church and state are values that you hold, please consider contributing by becoming an ACA member or visiting our product page at evolvefish.com under the Partner tab. Thank you.